Welcome back, and thanks for joining us today on Sayfie Review at noon. We're pleased to be joined by Senator Joe Negron. Senator Negron has served in the Senate for many years, and prior to that, he served in the Florida House of Representatives. Senator Negron, thank you so much for being with us on Sayfie Review at noon.
Great to be here.
Well, here we are. We're in Tampa. It's day 3 of the Republican National Convention. What do you think this is going to mean for our state from a business and economic development perspective?
Well, I think what it's done is really show and highlight the wonderful climate that we have here in Florida. It's a great place to live, to retire, to raise a family, to start or grow a business. I think it's really just given that image and that information to really an international audience. So I think it's been a great way to show off what we have here in Florida, and that Florida's open for business, that we're a great climate, we have good schools, we take care of our environment, and seeing really the new Florida, that Florida isn't just tourism and construction and other areas in agriculture, while those are important, that we've also grown into biotech, some manufacturing, and Tampa Bay is really where it's all happening.
Tell us about that a little bit on the biotech side, or any of these economic development areas, because when people from around the country, we know we have tens of thousands of people that are visiting here, they think of Florida as beaches, which that's our #1 industry, which is great. They may think of agriculture, they may think of our orange industry, our citrus industry, but talk a little bit about what you think you think the state is on diversifying that economic base, and where you think we need to be going in the future.
Well, I think the same way the Mayo Clinic, which is in Minnesota, which for most places in the country is slightly out of the way and difficult to get to, but because of their brand and the quality of what they have, it's now not only a national but an international destination. And I really feel with what we have in Miami Beach being the gateway to Latin America and South America, that is developing into a very strong competitive advantage for Florida. And then all through Florida, you see in the healthcare arena where we have technologies and quality people available to provide services that more and more people are coming from other states and from other countries to visit. So I think the future is bright. And while we're here at a convention focused on national issues, which is great, we had some elections, as you know, in our state about 2 weeks ago. And I think Tampa Bay, which already has strong representation, but with adding Tom Lee, a former Senate president, and then some young emerging leaders like Jeff Brandis and John Legg, I really think that we're poised to bring our state to the next level. I'd love to see us get some more Fortune 500 headquarters here. I think that should be our goal.
Well, you're one of the top legislative leaders in the Florida Senate, and you are, next year we'll have another legislative session. You mentioned some of the officials or some of the candidates who've won their respective primaries recently in recent weeks. What issues from a business economic development perspective do you see the legislature that they may want to address in next year's legislative session to improve the business climate?
I think that what I hear from constituents and what I see was a successful message in the primaries that we just had was that the people don't expect government to be like the Politburo and go mastermind the economy and say we need 10 of these and 14 of those. What they really want is for the obstacles to business expansion. And Governor Scott's done a great job with over 1,000 regulations that were there before are now gone. Of course, we want to protect the environment, have reasonable growth plans and that kind of thing. But I really think what they want us to do is to realize that without a strong business community, you don't have a nonprofit community. They realize the great effect it has on families when people can find jobs and people are able to work. So I really think they want us to keep our house in order, live within our means, and then make sure that we're a hospitable place to do business. And I think that's the direction that we're going. I really feel optimistic about our future. I'm sure you remember that our last year, 2011, that was the best year in tourism ever in Florida. Yeah. It even beat 05 and 06. People from Brazil are coming to Florida to visit, particularly Orlando. I mean, I think this is an exciting time to be in Florida, and I feel the business community coming back, particularly here in Tampa Bay and in some other parts of Florida.
Right, and I'm from South Florida, and I notice when I'm driving around and doing what I do normally, a lot of Brazilians, a lot of Venezuelans buying real estate and also doing retail transactions as well. So I think that the international trade is also helping us all over the state, and hopefully that'll continue. Last question, a little bit of time we have left. Just tell me what it's like to be a state senator from Florida at a Republican National Convention. What's your experience like when you're here?
Well, first of all, I'm proud. I'm proud of how incredibly gracious and welcoming the Tampa Bay community has been. I've heard so many comments from members of Congress, from delegates from around the country, how wonderfully they've been treated and greeted at the airport. And the security has been a little tight, and I think that's made for some challenges. But I think we've been able to show off. People forget about Tampa Bay, the incredible maritime industry
Right.
that Tampa Bay has. So I've really been proud. I was at the convention in St. Paul 4 years ago, and they did a wonderful job welcoming everyone. But I think it's really been special, and I'm glad the weather's cleared up to make it a nice time for everyone.
Indeed. Senator Negron, thank you so much for
thank you,
being with us
Justin.
today, and good luck in your service to the state in the future.
Thank you.
Great.
Good to be
Thanks.
here.
Now, next, we have Professor Dr. Susan MacManus. Dr. MacManus is a distinguished professor at the University of South Florida, teaching public administration and political science. You may have also, I'm sure you've seen her quotes. She's the most frequently quoted political science professor from our university system in national publications, national television, and I know you've read her columns that she does exclusively on SayfieReview.com. Dr. MacManus, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you with us on Sayfie Review at noon.
Thank you.
Here we are, your home region here in the Tampa Bay area for the Republican National Convention. You timely published this week on SayfieReview.com a piece regarding the Democrats and Republicans in Florida. Where are they and who are they? What were some of your top line findings in that research piece that's published on SayfieReview.com?
Well, a couple of things, because so many people have stereotypes about our state. First of all, they think everyone here is elderly. And secondly, among the Latino population, they assume that everyone's Cuban. Well, let's just start with those two things. First of all, in terms of people 65 and over, they make up 26% of our population, and baby boomers 50 to 64 make up another 27%. So really, when you add the two together, just a little over half of our population is over 50, which means we have a lot of younger people as well, and people really miss that step. And yet, when you're crafting ads and everything and trying to build a campaign strategy, you need to really be aware that there is a lot of age diversity in our state. And as to the Hispanics, of course, we see that they're much more diverse in their party affiliation. Certainly, there are now more non-Cubans than Cuban registrants in our state. But from a fascinating perspective, 39% of our Hispanic registered voters as of August 1 are Democrats, 30% Republicans, and a little under 30% are neither. So it's a much more diverse Hispanic community in Florida than you see in a lot of other states. And certainly you're from a part of the state where you clearly see everything, Cubans, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans more in the Orlando area, but it's a very important demographic for Republicans to reach. And by all accounts, they're lagging a little bit behind. So I think that that's one of the biggest challenges for Republicans this election cycle in Florida, is figuring out a way to really make inroads into particularly the new arrival Puerto Ricans who come here without a lot of strong party identity.
What, if any, trends did you notice? You've been doing this type of research for many years. What trends do you see that kind of may tell us about where Florida's political party registration and demographics are heading in the future?
It is clear that the older generation is becoming a bit more Republican. As the FDR generation Democrats pass on to glory, the younger old tend to be a slight bit more Republican. And Florida's seniors are, frankly, a little bit healthier and wealthier and better educated and younger than, some seniors in other places. But, so you see the trend there. And ironically, the most solidly Democratic voting bloc is now the 18 to 29-year-olds. So they've almost flipped spots. For so long it was always the seniors that were assumed to be solidly Democratic. And in 2008, the age group in Florida that voted most heavily for the president was the 18 to 29-year-old.
That's interesting, because long term, if those 18 to 29-year-olds keep their party registration or identification the same, that could have an impact as they get older, because we know that younger voters don't participate in the political process at the same rate that older citizens do.
Yeah, and it is also true among younger that both parties have to be wary of the fact that they have to do a lot of outreach and engaging of younger voters, because more and more are registering as no party affiliation, and I think a lot of that's driven by the highly negative ads that don't make either party look good from a young person's perspective, and so we're watching that very carefully. And of course, there's no better place to study age or racial and ethnic diversity than right here in the Sunshine State.
You have a feast of data to enjoy for you and your students on a regular basis, I bet.
It's a political science professor's dream.
Well, tell us about that. As I mentioned in my introduction, you're frequently quoted. You get called upon by members of the Florida national press quite often. What's this week been like for you as a political science professor from the home region of the convention, home state of the convention?
Well, first of all, I've been living college student hours. I'm not getting much sleep. We'll start with that one. But it's really very interesting. And of course, as an academic, you're always looking at new things. And I've had the wonderful pleasure of being interviewed by many, many foreign journalists, print, radio, television, as well as some national people. Every 4 years, I hear from reporters, they'll say, hey, remember me from 4 years ago. But the wonderful thing happened to me yesterday. One of my former students I hadn't seen in 20 years appears at WFLA News Channel 8 that I'm the analyst for this season, and introduced himself. Of course, I remembered him. And he is now the executive director of the North Carolina Republican Party, in charge of the whole delegation.
Wow.
And it's the kind of thing that being at these conventions, and I'll be going to Charlotte next week, really helps me place students, get them involved in politics, because I wouldn't be in teaching if I didn't really enjoy seeing the students succeed and fulfill their dreams too.
That's great. Well, so that's a lesson for all the students that are watching this, or aspirational students watching this. It's good to be a student in Dr. MacManus's class. Your future is bright.
Well, they may not think that when they have to take tests, but you know, time heals all wounds, you know.
Right. Well, Dr. MacManus, thank you so much for being with us today, and good luck to you next week in Charlotte.
And it's a real pleasure to write for the Sayfie Review. My students love it. News aggregation sites have been wonderfully engaging of students, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. And now we have our final guest. You're going to be pleased to be joined by Senator Paula Dockery. Senator Dockery was first elected to the Florida House and served in the Florida House from 1997 to 2002, and has been in the Florida Senate since 2003, and served as the majority whip in the Florida Senate in 2003 and 2004. Senator Dockery, thank you so much for being with us today on Sayfie Review at noon.
My pleasure.
Great to have you. So what's your convention experience been like thus far, and what do you think it means for our state, short-term and long-term, to have the convention here in Tampa and in our home state?
Well, I think it gives us an opportunity to show off the gem that is Tampa Bay, and the kind of the gateway to the I-4 corridor, which politically is gold in presidential campaigns, and in fact in statewide campaigns as well. As I-4 corridor goes, so goes the state of Florida. And being one of the largest swing states, that's very important politically.
Yeah. What do you hear from your constituents and voters in terms of issues that they're concerned about, small business owners that are impacting their business? Obviously, we know the economy isn't doing as well as we all hope it would be. What are some of the things that you're hearing from your constituents on that?
Well, the past 2 years in the state Senate, I've served on the Economic Development Commerce Committee. And we've had the opportunity to, as most committees, go through lots of data, lots of surveys. And what we hear from businesses is not necessarily that they want tax breaks or incentives to move their business. It's all about quality of life. They want to be able to relocate or grow a business where they can bring their family, where there are all kinds of good educational opportunities, where there's good health care. And I think the Tampa Bay area is the pinnacle of all of those factors that make a great quality of life.
Right. That's one interesting, I know, debate that takes place sometimes, because some states that don't have a good quality of life, it seems like they try to provide a lot of economic incentives and almost buy businesses to come into their state. Florida, we have great natural resources, but it's the quality of life issues like education, the quality of healthcare, and things like that can make a difference.
And we do both.
Right.
We have something great to offer, and we offer incentives, and we try to make those incentives more along the lines of breaking down barriers and structuring the road system or whatever to the needs of that business coming here. The one place we're a little bit lacking in Florida that I'd like to see us pick up more business is in the manufacturing sector, because you do have a lot of individuals who are at the educational level where they need those types of jobs. Not everybody's well suited to be a CEO, and so we have to have the jobs that fit all different educational levels. But we're also very fortunate in the state of Florida to have such a great university system, and here in Tampa Bay, USF, highly respected research facility.
Right. It seems like diversifying the economic base is really important, that the high white collar type jobs, but then also the manufacturing jobs. I listened to Governor Nikki Haley's speech last night, Governor of South Carolina, and she was very emphatic in saying that she's very proud of what South Carolina has been able to do in terms of manufacturing. A lot of manufacturing jobs they've been able to bring. I have to think that if they can do it in South Carolina, we should be able to do it as well here in Florida.
Absolutely, and keep in mind, we have 14 deep water seaports, more than any other state in the nation, and a lot of times when a ship comes in or the rail cars come in, they're bringing items into the state, but we're really not exporting much out of here. So manufacturing in Florida has the transportation system already, set for them. So our rail system is great, our port system is great and getting better. We're investing in it. Tampa has an excellent airport that most business travelers say they find a joy to come in and out of. So we have the infrastructure here, and we're improving as we go forward.
That's great. Well, Senator Dockery, thank you so much for being with us. It's a pleasure having you, and good luck in your continued service to our state.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks. And that's going to wrap it up for Sayfie Review at noon today. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned next for a great panel discussion with Lunch with Kathy.